The film begins by showing an elite high school that only children from wealthy families or high achievers who are lucky enough to get a full scholarship from the school foundation can attend. There is a special reason why this high school only accepts children from high social status or genius children with high ingenuity. In this classy high school called Hyakkaou High School, most students don't prioritize academic achievement or inter-school competitions but are more interested in practicing gambling. The school allows the practice of gambling in any form whenever school lessons have ended, and all students are free to bet anything in gambling. The practice of gambling at Hyakkaou High School has become a highly respected tradition in recent years. In fact, the caste of each student at the school is determined by their winnings in every gambling game they participate in. The more wins they get and the more money they have, they will be categorized into a higher caste and are more respected by other students. The caste system is also one of the mandatory rules in Hyakkaou High School, and all students are bound by it. Every student who loses in the gambling game they participate in and does not have the money to pay off the debt from the gambling bet will be considered a student with the lowest caste. Every female student who belongs to the lowest caste will be called Maiki, while male students from the lowest caste will be called Pochi. Any student appointed as a Maiki or Pochi would be treated very badly by the other students, and they would even become errant boys for the student who had beaten them. This second regulation is quite extreme for schools in the modern world. However, the school committee has set this rule. He said their status could be revoked if they could pay all their gambling debts to the opponent or dealer who held the gambling game. Another way to revoke Pochi's or Maiki's status is to win a gambling game against one of the student council members at the school. The student council members are the benchmark for revoking Pochi or Maiki's status because the number of bets that must be submitted in a gambling game against student council members is truly unlimited. These bets can be in any form, including life bets. So if a Pochi or Maiki can win a gambling game against a student council member, they can automatically get a lot of money and pay off all their debts. But one important thing they should know is that everyone selected to be a member of the student council is a shrewd person with very great gambling skills and a very high win rate. All this time, all the student council members and the student council president had an extraordinary reputation in terms of gambling games. But all that changed when one night, a student who became Pochi defeated the student council president last year. This year, the student council president has been replaced by another student. The scene moves to when a male student named Ryota Suzui loses a card gambling game against a female student named Mary Saotome. Saotome is actually a student who transferred to Hyakkaou High School 1 year ago. She used to be an innocent student who was more concerned with academic achievement. But since she got to know gambling games at school, Saotome has become obsessed with gambling games because she often wins gambling games thanks to her genius in reading situations. Many students at the school acknowledge her gambling skills and want her to join their club. After Ryota lost the gambling game, he was automatically in debt and forced to become a Pochi because he did not have enough money to pay the betting money. Every Pochi is required to wear a black necklace, which is a sign that they are Pochi or Maiki, so that everyone can be aware of their status. Then Ryota has to accept the fact that he will be treated like a low-class slave or errand boy by students who have a higher caste than him. In the middle of the semester, Hyakkaou High School accepts a new girl student named Yumeko Jabami, and the student is placed in the same class as Ryota and Saotome. As class president, Ryota was assigned to guide Yumeko to go around the school, introduce the school environment, and tell important rules in the school. But when Yumeko saw Pochi's necklace owned by Ryota, she realized that Ryota had lost in a gambling game. Apparently, she already knew quite a lot of the rules at that school, and even the reason she entered the school was that the school had a tradition of gambling games. After that, Yumeko confesses to Ryota that she really likes gambling and has been illegally gambling outside school. Seeing her looking eager to gamble, Ryota warned Yumeko not to get involved in gambling games, especially against student council members. However, she ignored his warning because, from the start, her purpose in coming to school was to play a gambling game. On the first day Yumeko entered the school, Saotome challenged her to a fight in a gambling game to make her become a Mikey, and Yumeko would continue to be her slave. In the gambling game between them, this time, they will play a card gambling game with a picture of rock, paper, scissors. In this game, each player will take 3 cards from a box that already contains cards drawn by all students in the class, where the box will contain 3 types of cards: rock cards, paper cards, and scissors cards. After the class had drawn the cards and put them in the box, Yumeko and Saotome placed their bets and drew 3 cards from the box. In the first round, Saotome won the game, and Yumeko had to lose all the money she had bet. In the second round, Saotome won the game and a large amount of money. In the third round, when Yumeko put 10 million yen in cash on the line, she looked very confident about that last round. Before they show their cards, Yumeko reveals that she already knew about Saotome's cheating, thanks to the analysis she did in the previous round. Finally, Yumeko outsmarted Saotome's cheating and won the game in a landslide in the final round. At that moment, Saotome looked surprised and couldn't believe that a new student like Yumeko could beat her in the gambling game she had created herself. And because Saotome doesn't have 10 million yen, she will automatically become a Mikey because she can't pay her debt to Yumeko. So, Yumeko turns out to be a girl with extraordinary instincts, and she will realize if her opponent is cheating. She already knew Saotome had mastered the class to manipulate the cards in the box from the start and had ordered Ryota to mark her cards. At that time, Saotome was afraid when she learned that currently her status was Mikey and she would be treated badly by the other students. After the game ends, Yumeko gives Ryota some money to thank him for helping her in the previous game. She already knows that Ryota has a gambling debt to Saotome, so she wants him to pay off the debt with the money she gave him. However, her strange character makes Ryota confused because he can't tell whether Yumeko is a good girl or a bad girl. The next day, Saotome's desk was filled with scribbles and various paper trash, so the desk looked very messy. That treatment was something that a Pochi or Mikey would most commonly experience, as it was part of the bullying done by the other students. Yumeko, who saw what happened, tried to ask if she was okay, but she instead scolded her and said that Yumeko was the cause of all this. At lunchtime, Ryota invites Yumeko to talk because he wants to ask about her true character. Ryota is still confused by her, who looks very kind and innocent in everyday life but becomes a cruel and scary girl when gambling. After news of Saotome's defeat spreads throughout the school, the entire Hyakkaou High School Student Council starts paying attention to Yumeko. They plan to send one of their members to defeat her. A female student council member named Itsuki Sumeragi volunteered to fight against Yumeko in a gambling game. Itsuki is the daughter of a large company owner who sells gambling game products such as cards, dice, and other gambling games. Apart from getting a lot of money, Itsuki has another goal in every gambling game she participates in, where she wants to promote all the products of her father's company. Itsuki, confident in her abilities, challenged Yumeko to play gambling, but Yumeko refused the offer because she did not have enough money to bet on the gambling. Hearing this, Itsuki decided to lend her some money so that she would no longer be able to avoid the gambling game. After Yumeko agreed, Itsuki explained that the gambling game they would be playing this time was a game of double concentration, where they would use 2 decks of poker cards. The 2 decks of cards will be spread face down on the table. Each must match one card with another. If they find the same card, they will play again, but if they can't find the same one, the opposing player will have a turn to continue the game until all the cards are open. After the 2 card decks have been spread out on the table, they start matching the existing cards and manage to match the same card. But after a while, it turned out that Itsuki matched a bigger number of cards, so she managed to win the gambling game in the first round. Because Yumeko doesn't have 20 million yen to pay the gambling bets to Itsuki, Itsuki proposes to do a second round so that she has a chance to win more money. Even in this round, Yumeko's gambling debts will be considered paid off if she manages to win the game. But if she loses the game this time, she has to give up one of her fingernails because Itsuki has quite a strange obsession. It turns out that she really likes collecting human nails. Then Yumeko accepted the challenge because she didn't want to owe much to Itsuki, and she was also interested in the crazy betting idea offered by Itsuki. All the students there seemed enthusiastic about watching this very tense gambling game. But, before the game started, Yumeko exposed the cheating that Itsuki had done in the previous game. Yumeko informs everyone that the game of double concentration was manipulated by Itsuki, whereby each card had a mark on the reverse side of each card so she could figure out the number on the other side of the card. Yumeko proved all of this by turning over all the cards on the table, and it turned out that she actually managed to match all of the cards. After Yumeko uncovered her secret, Itsuki looked panicked and scared because no other student had ever beaten her in the game. After Yumeko wins the gambling game, she frees herself from these debts and threatens Itsuki not to repeat her mistake. Yumeko says playing with cheating was very boring. A few days later, Saotome intends to let go of her status as a Mikey by challenging one of the student council members named Yuriko Nishinodowin to play gambling. Saotome hopes she can win enough money to pay off her gambling debt to Yumeko. It turned out that Yumeko watched the gambling game because she was curious about Yuriko's gambling skills. Yuriko herself is a member of the student council who is known to have a very high win rate in every gambling game she participates in, and she is the head of the traditional dance club at the school. Unfortunately, Saotome had to lose in the gambling game and get into even more debt to her. After Saotome left the place, Yuriko challenged Yumeko to gamble in a knife game called Life and Death. In that game, the bookies would place small knives in a container and then place the container on a circular wooden board that had been hollowed out. The task of each player is to guess which knife will go into the hole. The knife that is pointing up is called a live knife, while the knife that is pointing down is called a dead knife. In this game, Yumeko confidently bets 40 million yen, and everyone who loses in the game must pay 3 times the amount of the bet. At first, Yuriko thought she would win the match, but in the middle of the game, she looked surprised when she realized that she had guessed wrong. Yumeko then reveals that she already knew Yuriko had manipulated the game. So, Yuriko has cheated by working with a bookie who has secretly implanted a magnet in her hand. So the bookies will move the knife on the board secretly using her magnet so that the knife moves according to her guess. Yumeko realized that cheating still had loopholes because the knife could have turned the other way, so Yuriko's victory would not be guaranteed. Hearing that, she seemed panicked after Yumeko exposed her cheating, and she did not expect to be threatened with owing a big amount of money, namely 2,170 million yen. Yumeko also knows that the reason why Yuriko joined the student council is to be able to earn a lot of money so her art dance club can continue. After all her plans were uncovered, she begged Yumeko not to open the container and tried negotiating with Yumeko. But at the same time, the vice chairman of the student council, who always wears a mask wherever she goes, comes to that place and asks the dealer to open the container. Unexpectedly, after the bookie opened the container, the position of the knife matched Yuriko's guess, and Yumeko had to lose the game with quite a large gambling debt. Yuriko looked surprised and didn't expect that she could win the game. While Yumeko calmly said that she knew someone who had done another trick with a mole trick. Sadly, Yumeko has to accept that she has been assigned as a Mikey with a debt of 310 million yen. After the game ends, she tells Ryota that the previous game had been manipulated by someone using a mole trick. Where someone had hollowed out a hole in the wooden plank and changed the position of the knife to match one of the player's guesses. But even though she had lost the gambling game, Yumeko didn't regret her decision to come to school because she had a great desire to play gambling against the student council president. A few days later, the student council committee distributes a file called the Book of the Future to all Pochi and Mikey at Hyakkaou School, containing a deal to which each of them must agree. In the agreement, it is written that for every Pochi or Mikey who cannot pay their debts by a certain time, the student council members have the right to arrange every move or action they have to do. At the beginning of this semester, the school's student council committee also holds a big debt settlement meeting that all Pochi and Mikey in the school must attend. The meeting, chaired by a student council member named Sayaka Irigashi, was held in the school hall and was a new agenda held that year. Sayaka announces that the student council committee has held a new game which could be a chance for Pochi and Mikey to earn a lot of money. In the debt exchange game, each Pochi and Mikey will be grouped into 4 people, and each group will fight against the other. Everyone who wins this gambling game will get a prize of 10 million yen, and all debts will be automatically written off. Meanwhile, players with the last rank will be burdened with a much larger debt than they currently have. Each player will be given 10 chips worth 10% of each player's debt, so Yumeko will have the chip with the highest value of 31 million yen because she has the biggest debt. In this game, Yumeko and Saotome will be in the same group along with two other people, a Mikey named Tsubomi and a male student named Kiwatari. Kiwatari isn't actually a pochi or a slave, but he deliberately joins in this game to get more money, while the person who will be in charge of being a dealer this time is Sayaka. As the game started, Sayaka started dealing poker cards to Yumeko and the others and told them the game's rules. In the first round, Kiwatari won the poker gambling game, becoming even more arrogant and confident that he could beat the other players. But in the next round, Yumeko reveals that she already knows about Kiwatari's cheating trick. It turns out that Kiwatari forces Tsubomi to follow his orders and even forces her to lose the game. But before the game started, Yumeko and Saotome had worked together to beat Kiwatari by swapping their chips so he would not get them from Yumeko. After several rounds of the early game, they deliberately lose the game, making Kiwatari more confident to bet all his money. In the last round, Kiwatari realized that Tsubomi had pretty good cards, so he was even more certain that he would win the game and get a lot of money. Before the game round ended, Yumeko persuaded Tsubomi to disobey Kiwatari's orders and asked her not to give in to him. Yumeko even persuaded Saotome to let Tsubomi win in the round so that later Kiwatari would get the lowest points. Seeing this situation, Kiwatari begged Tsubomi to withdraw from this game so he wouldn't end up in the last position. However, unexpectedly, she decided to continue the game and stopped obeying him. After the game ended and all the points from each round were calculated, Saotome was declared the winner in first place, Tsubomi was in second place, Yumeko was in third place, and Kiwatari had to end up in last place. Not only that, the chip that Kiwatari won in the previous round was Saotome's chip, whose value was much lower than Yumeko's chip, so Kiwatari failed to get big money and instead had far more debt. Then Yumeko and Saotome revealed to Kiwatari that they had swapped their chips before the game started. Seeing this situation, Kiwatari begged Sayaka to cancel the game results because he considered that what they were doing was a form of cheating. But Sayaka said that what they did was not a violation, so the final result of the gambling game was considered valid. Kiwatari, who initially intends to get a lot of money from Yumeko's chip, has a lot of debt and has to accept the reality of becoming a pochi. Thanks to the debt exchange game, Saotome and Yumeko managed to get 260 million yen, which Saotome will use to pay off debts to student council members. Because Saotome still has quite a lot of money left, she hands the remaining money to Yumeko to repay her debt to the student council committee. But strangely, Yumeko turned down the offer of money and said that she planned to earn more money in other ways. She intends to use her Mikey card to challenge the student council president to a fight in a game of official gambling because student council members are forbidden to refuse an invitation to a legal game from a slave. Hearing that, Saotome is confused by Yumeko's unexpected behavior because she is obsessed with beating all the student council members instead of paying her debt. Her ambition to defeat the student council president is overheard by a student council member, and it seems the student council president will find out about it soon. The other day, Itsuki came to see Saotome after she was kicked out of the student council some time ago, and she wanted to ask Saotome where Yumeko was. Apparently, Itsuki knew that Yumeko wanted to challenge the student council president in a gambling game, and she wanted to support her in that game. She hopes that if Yumeko wins the gambling game and becomes the student council president, she will be reinstated as a student council member. Then Itsuki asked Saotome to work with her, but Saotome seemed annoyed with her, who wanted to take advantage of other people and refused the offer. On the other hand, a male student council member named Kaede Maniuta begins to worry about Yumeko's whereabouts since she manages to uncover every gambling secret of the student council members. Kaede actually didn't want the student council members to focus too much on Yumeko because that would make the student council look weak and easily shaken by a transfer student who had become a Mikey. Kaede is a student council member who has been eyeing the position of student council president for a long time. So he feels that Yumeko's presence, who has the ambition to challenge the student council president, could put his position in jeopardy. To overcome this, Kaede asked another student council member named Midori Ikishima to have a gambling battle against Yumeko and teach her a lesson. So, Ikishima is a strange student who has a big obsession with guns, like a psychopath, and he even always carries a gun wherever she goes. Knowing that, Kaede wants to take advantage of her madness to challenge Yumeko to a gamble and beat her in the game. Ikishima is also interested in fighting Yumeko in a gambling game and feels that Yumeko is an interesting opponent.
Jabami Yumeko to yaru ga. Huh? Kaichou ga kyoka shita.
The next day, Yumeko is forced into the beauty club room by one of Ikishima's men while she is waiting for Yumeko to arrive there. When Yumeko arrived at the beauty club room, Ikishima challenged her to a gambling game with lives as the game's stakes. Seeing Ikishima, who always wears a blindfold, Yumeko feels curious and asks why she always covers her eyes. While pointing a gun at Yumeko and behaving strangely like a psychopath, Ikishima explains that she has lost her eye because she lost a gambling game against the student council president. In the match then, Ikishima was desperate to risk one eye to defeat the student council president, but instead, she ended up losing her eye. Hearing this story, Yumeko accepted the challenge because she wanted to know Ikishima's gambling skills. In this gambling game, each player will be asked to arrange a picture card according to the bookie's card arrangement. The rules in this game are quite simple. Players who succeed in guessing the same card arrangement as the bookies are allowed to shoot a gun at opposing players. Ryota, who will be assigned as a dealer in this game, will be placed in a different room, and they can only communicate using a monitor. The gun that will be used in this game is a gun that has been filled with bullets by each player, and the gun will be put in a box, so players don't know which gun is not filled with bullets. When the game started, Yumeko and Ikishima won the first round because their cards were exactly the same as Ryota's. Meanwhile, Ryota, who didn't want Yumeko to lose in this game, was panicked and scared because he didn't know which card arrangement she would use. But he will try so that the arrangement of the cards he has can be exactly the same as the arrangement of cards that Yumeko has. Unfortunately, in the second round, Ikishima managed to excel by guessing the same 3 cards as Ryota, while Yumeko could only guess 2. Ikishima was very happy and excited to use this opportunity to shoot Yumeko. But it turns out the gun used by Ikishima is a gun without bullets because Yumeko had not deliberately loaded any bullets into her pistols. Seeing this, Ikishima became even more interested in Yumeko's ingenuity because, so far, the only person who could defeat her was the student council president. Before the last round started, Yumeko revealed that she already knew about the cheating trick used by Ikishima, where she had inverted the monitor display so that the card arrangement looked different from Yumeko's card arrangement. In the third round, Ikishima didn't even have a chance to use that cheating trick, and they were going to make the game as fair as it should be. Thanks to Yumeko's genius, the final game of the round ended in a draw because they arranged the cards in the wrong order. Yumeko deliberately did the same thing as Ikishima did because she didn't want to let Ikishima lose since, for Ikishima, death is victory. Yumeko apparently understands that girls with psychopathic personalities like Ikishima are obsessed with pain and death, and she isn't going to let Ikishima get that win. In a slightly arrogant manner, Yumeko said that among all the other student council members, Ikishima's gambling game was the worst, and she wanted Ikishima not to continue that game anymore. This film ends by showing Kaede, who is in conflict with Saotome because he wants to force her to join as a student council member. However, Saotome prefers to refuse the offer because she already has other plans. The moral message we can learn from this film is to treat others fairly as you would like to be treated fairly because cheating will only put you in a more difficult situation.